I can see the waitress's face perfectly, even now, that split second when her eyes locked across the crowded restaurant, and she knew. She just knew. Without a word, she tilted her head toward the kitchen, her mouth forming a single syllable. Hide. And I did. God help me, I got up from my own wedding reception and hid in a walk-in freezer while everything I'd built collapsed in the dining room 30 feet away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's not where this starts. My name is Michael Chen, and until about 6 hours before that moment, I was going to be happy forever. Or at least that's what I believed, and isn't that what matters? 3 years earlier, I'd met Jennifer at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. One of those ridiculous meet-cutes that you don't actually believe happens in real life until it does. I knocked over her oat milk latte. She laughed instead of screaming. We talked for 40 minutes while the barista gave us increasingly hostile looks. She had this way of tilting her head when she listened that made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. Jennifer was beautiful, sure, but it wasn't that. It was her laugh. It was the fact that she cried during a commercial about paper towels. It was how she remembered my coffee order after we'd only met once. She was a physical therapist, worked with orthopedic patients, had a student loan debt of about $68,000, but wasn't stressed about it. We'll figure it out, she'd say, which, at the time, seemed like optimism instead of what it actually was. A warning sign that she wasn't great with money. But I loved her. Genuinely, bone-deep, terrified of losing her, loved her. I'm a software engineer. Decent salary, about $120 a year, and I'd been smart with it. Not obsessively so, but I had a 401k, a Roth IRA, a down payment saved for a house. My credit score was 762. I owned a Toyota Corolla that I'd paid off in 2019. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you this because it matters. It matters that I was the kind of person who had his life organized, the kind of person who reads the fine print, the kind of person who should have seen what was coming. We got engaged on a Tuesday, just like that. No fancy proposal. We were lying in bed, her apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in Northeast Portland, and I asked her. She said yes before I even finished the sentence. Her ring was a modest diamond, 1.1 carats, in a white gold band. Cost me about $4,000. Not cheap, but responsible. The wedding planning started immediately. Jennifer wanted something elegant, but not stuffy. 75 guests. A nice restaurant in the Pearl District with floor-to-ceiling windows and exposed brick. Catering, photographer, a small jazz quartet. Budget, $15,000. I could afford it. We could afford it together, though Jennifer's contribution was mostly emotional labor and opinions about napkin colors. Her mother, Karen, was involved in a way that made me understand where Jennifer's emotional intensity came from. Karen had opinions on everything. The flowers were too garden party. The menu needed more options for people with sensitivities. The guest list needed to include Karen's Pilates instructor and her dental hygienist, which, look, I had opinions too, but I kept them to myself because this was Jennifer's day. My parents were supportive in that quiet, proud way that Asian parents have. My mom spent 3 days helping Jennifer's family prepare. My dad wrote a check and showed up. That was the deal. The week before the wedding, everything felt real. Jennifer had gotten her dress tailored, a sleek ivory gown that made her look like she'd stepped out of a Vera Wang catalog. I'd had my suit fitted at a place in downtown Portland that charged way too much but made me look sharp. We'd done the rehearsal dinner. Everything was perfect, exactly as planned. The night before the wedding, Jennifer and I didn't see each other. Tradition, she insisted, even though we'd been living together for 8 months. She stayed at her parents' house in Lake Oswego. I stayed at my apartment downtown with my best man, David, who kept making jokes about cold feet and commitment issues. "You good, brother?" David asked around midnight, sitting on my couch with a beer. I'm good, I said. Really good. She's amazing. She is, David agreed. He'd known Jennifer almost as long as I had. You're lucky, man. Like, genuinely lucky. I believed him. I felt lucky. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early and couldn't get back to sleep. Not from nerves, from excitement. I texted Jennifer, "Can't wait to see you." She responded within seconds, "Me too, baby." You're going to cry. I can feel it. I probably would. I'm not ashamed of that. The restaurant was beautiful. September light pouring through those big windows, the trees outside already starting to turn. The florist had done incredible work. White roses and eucalyptus, elegant and simple. The staff moved quietly around the room, setting up tables. I arrived an hour early with David, checked everything twice, and felt that deep, settling sense of rightness that comes when a plan comes together perfectly. My parents arrived. My extended family trickled in, aunts, uncles, cousins. Karen arrived looking stunning in a champagne-colored dress, already tearing up. Jennifer's father, Tom, was quieter, but smiling. The jazz quartet did a sound check. Everything was happening exactly as we'd discussed. Then Jennifer's best friend, Lindsay, pulled me aside about 10 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to start. "Michael," she said, and her face was wrong. Her face was the color of old newspaper. "We need to talk." That's when things got strange. Lindsay's hands were shaking. Actually shaking. Her manicure, fresh acrylics, probably $200, looked like it was about to claw through her phone screen. "What's wrong?" I asked. But I already knew something was wrong. I could taste it, like metal on my tongue. "We need to go somewhere private," she said. "Right now, before Jennifer comes." My best man, David, appeared at my elbow. "Everything okay, brother?" "Give us a minute," Lindsay said, not looking at him. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the kitchen, past the caterers, past the jazz quartet tuning up their instruments for a ceremony that now felt like it existed in some alternate timeline. The walk-in pantry was cool and quiet, boxes of supplies stacked high, a single fluorescent bulb humming overhead. Lindsay closed the door behind us, and I watched her struggle with how to say whatever she needed to say. "Jennifer," she started, then stopped. Started again. "Michael, I found something. On her phone. By accident. We were taking selfies for Instagram, and her phone fell out of her purse, and I picked it up, and the screen was already open, and I..." "Lindsay, what did you find?" "Text messages. Between her and someone named Marcus. Michael, they're explicit. Like, really explicit. And they're not old. The most recent one is from yesterday. She was texting him while her mom was fitting her dress." The room didn't spin. That's what surprised me. I thought the room would spin. Instead, everything became very still and very clear, like I was looking at the world through a sheet of glass. "Are you sure?" I asked. Such a stupid question. Of course she was sure. "I'm sure. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I almost told you yesterday, but I thought maybe it was old. Maybe they were just..." But then I checked this morning, and she texted him at 6 a.m. saying she was nervous about the ceremony. "Michael," she said. Lindsay's voice cracked. She said she couldn't wait to see him after. After our wedding. After the vows and the first dance and the bouquet toss. She was planning to meet someone named Marcus. "Where's Jennifer now?" My voice sounded normal. That was the strangest part. I sounded like myself. "Getting ready at the hotel. She's supposed to be here in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I had 20 minutes to decide what to do with the fact that my entire life had just vaporized. 75 guests in the dining room. My parents, Jennifer's parents, the jazz quartet, the catering, the dress, the suit, the rings, the $15,000, the credit score I'd maintained so carefully, the 401k I'd been building since I was 24, the Roth IRA, the down payment for the house we'd talked about buying next year. All of it was a joke I wasn't in on. I need Jennifer's phone, I said. What? No, Michael, I need to see it myself. She won't give it to you, and if she knows I told you, then we need to figure this out before she gets here. Lindsay pulled out her own phone with trembling fingers and showed me the messages. I didn't want to read them, but I did. I read every single one. The pet names, the descriptions of things they'd done, the plan to meet at a hotel downtown after the reception, the casual cruelty of it. Can't believe I'm about to marry him, LOL. At least I'll have you tonight. I read that last one 3 times. What do you want to do? Lindsay asked quietly. That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want to do? Cancel the wedding, obviously. Call the caterer, the photographer, the venue. Tell 75 people that the bride had decided to commit adultery approximately 4 hours before committing to me. Humiliate Jennifer the way she'd humiliated me. Make sure everyone knew. Make sure her parents knew. Make sure Marcus, whoever the hell Marcus was, understood what kind of person he was helping to destroy someone. Or I could walk out. Just leave. Get in my Corolla and drive somewhere. Disappear. Let Jennifer wonder where I was. Let her panic. Let her experience for once the feeling of not knowing what was happening to her own life. Or I could confront her. Pull her aside when she arrived. Show her the messages. Watch her face when she realized she'd been caught. Demand an explanation that wouldn't matter because there was no explanation that would matter. I was standing in a pantry in a nice restaurant in Portland, Oregon, in a suit that cost $800, with my whole life arranged like items on a catering menu, trying to decide how to end it. I need to think, I said. Michael. Not now, Lindsay. I can't. I need to think. I left the pantry and walked back into the dining room like a ghost. Everything looked exactly the same. The white roses, the soft jazz, my parents sitting at the head table, my mom adjusting the name cards for probably the 15th time, Karen fussing with the centerpieces, Tom standing by the window, looking proud. 75 people. 75 people who had taken time out of their lives, bought clothes, driven to Portland, sat at tables with people they might not like, and were about to watch me marry someone who was texting her boyfriend about meeting him later. I found David in the hallway outside the main dining room. We need to talk, I said. His face changed. He knew. Not the details, but he knew something was catastrophically wrong. We went to the men's room. I locked the door and told him everything. I showed him the messages on Lindsay's phone. I watched his face move through shock, then anger, then something worse, pity. What are you going to do? He asked. I don't know. You have to cancel. You know that, right? You can't marry her. I know. This is... Jesus, Michael. I'm so sorry. I stood at the sink and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like a man about to get married. I looked happy. I looked like someone with a plan and a future and a credit score of 762. I looked like someone who had no idea that the person he loved was already planning to cheat on him before the vows were even spoken. Tell me what to do, I said to David, because I genuinely don't know. Tell her no. Tell everyone no. Get a lawyer. Actually, he pulled out his phone. I know a divorce attorney, Brad Morrison. He's good. I'll call him right now. A divorce attorney. For a marriage that hadn't happened yet. Not yet, I said. I need to talk to her first. But I didn't talk to her. Instead, I went back to the dining room and I sat at the head table and I waited. I waited for Jennifer to arrive in her Vera Wang dress. I waited to see if she would look different. I waited to see if I could see the betrayal written across her face. She arrived 30 minutes later, radiant and glowing, and completely, utterly oblivious to the fact that I knew everything. And that's when the waitress, Sarah, I would learn her name was Sarah, appeared at my shoulder with water glasses and made eye contact with me for just long enough that I knew she'd heard something, pieced something together, understood that something was desperately, catastrophically wrong. She tilted her head toward the kitchen, just barely, just enough. And instead of confronting Jennifer, instead of calling off the wedding, instead of doing any of the things I should have done, I got up and followed her. I let her lead me past the prep stations and the ovens and into the walk-in freezer at the back. The cold hit me like a physical thing. "Stay here," Sarah said. "Don't come out until I tell you to." "What? Why? Just trust me, please." And then I was alone in a freezer, surrounded by hanging sides of beef and industrial shelving, shaking from cold and shock and the peculiar terror of having absolutely no idea what was about to happen. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my teeth to start chattering. Long enough for the cold to seep into my bones. Long enough to stop shaking and start feeling numb, which was somehow worse. The door opened. Sarah stuck her head in. "Okay," she said quietly. "Come with me, but stay quiet." I followed her back through the kitchen, past prep stations where cooks were plating appetizers, back toward the dining room. But she didn't lead me to the main entrance. Instead, she guided me to a service hallway that ran parallel to the dining room, the kind of passage that restaurant staff use to move between stations without being seen by guests. There was a gap in the wall where we could see into the dining room without being visible. Sarah positioned me there and handed me her phone. "Watch," she whispered. I didn't understand what I was watching for until Jennifer appeared at the entrance, radiant in her Vera Wang dress, and I saw her scan the room. Not looking for me, looking for someone else. Her eyes landed on a man sitting at a table near the back, tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than mine. He was texting on his phone, and when Jennifer made eye contact with him, he smiled. That specific kind of smile. The smile of someone who had already seen her naked. "That's Marcus," Sarah whispered. "He came with a second wave of guests. He's been texting her since he arrived. I saw her phone light up 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Marcus. There he was. The physical manifestation of every text message, every lie, every moment Jennifer had spent looking into my eyes while planning to betray me." My hands curled into fists. "There's more," Sarah said, and she showed me her own phone. She'd taken screenshots, not of the messages, of the seating chart. Marcus Chen. No relation to me, apparently. But there it was, in Jennifer's handwriting on the original chart. "Marcus, seat him away from Michael, in case he notices." In case he notices. Like I was a child who might get confused about who his bride had been sleeping with. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because it's wrong," Sarah said simply, "and because you deserve to know before you walk out there and say vows to someone who's already checked out. I have 2 sisters. If any of them did this to someone, I'd want someone to tell him." I looked at Sarah for a long moment. She was maybe 40, with tired eyes and a wedding ring of her own. She smelled like the kitchen, garlic and butter and honest work. "What's your name?" I asked. "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell." "Thank you, Sarah Mitchell." She nodded. "What are you going to do?" That was the question again, but this time I knew the answer. "I'm going to ruin him," I said. I walked back into the dining room like a man on a mission. My parents looked up, confused that I'd been gone. My mom's face shifted. She could read me. She knew something was wrong. I went straight to the stage where the jazz quartet was setting up. The saxophonist looked at me with mild alarm. "Can I borrow the microphone?" I asked. He glanced at the other musicians. "It's not set up yet and—" "I don't care. I need it now." He handed it over. I tapped it twice. The screech of feedback made everyone in the room jump. 75 faces turned toward me. Jennifer was still standing near the entrance, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. Good afternoon, I said, and my voice was steady, steadier than I felt. Thank you all for coming. I know you're excited, so I'm going to make this quick. Michael? Jennifer's voice was small, worried, playing the part of the confused bride perfectly. There's not going to be a wedding today, I said, and I want to tell you all why. I pressed a button on Sarah's phone that was connected to the sound system. The screenshots came up on the projector screen that had been set up for a slideshow of couple photos. The text messages between Jennifer and Marcus, blown up to readable size. Can't wait to see you tonight. He's so boring. I'm only marrying him for his money anyway. That last one, that was the kill shot. The room erupted. Karen gasped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Tom's face went purple. And Jennifer looked like someone had slapped her across the face. Jennifer, do you want to explain those? Or should I? I asked into the microphone. Michael, those are taken out of context. They're texts you sent yesterday and this morning, to a man you invited to our wedding without telling me, to a man you were planning to meet tonight, after the reception, after we'd danced, after we'd cut the cake, after you'd promised to love me forever. I turned to Marcus. He was already standing, already moving toward the exit. Don't go, I said into the microphone. Stay. Face what you did. You've been fucking my fiancé for how long? 6 months? A year? I'm curious. Did you think this was romantic? Did you think showing up to my wedding to meet her was some kind of grand gesture? He kept walking. I didn't stop him. I didn't need to. I looked at Jennifer. She was crying now, but not the kind of tears that meant anything. These were tears of being caught, not tears of remorse. You know what the worst part is? I said. Not that you cheated, not that you lied. The worst part is that you were willing to stand in front of all these people and promise to love me, knowing you didn't. Knowing you were already planning to betray me. You were willing to take my money, $15,000 for this wedding, knowing you had no intention of honoring those vows. You were willing to let me believe I had a future with you when you'd already decided I didn't matter. My voice cracked on that last part, and I hated it. I hated that she still had the power to make me feel anything other than contempt. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm calling my divorce attorney, Brad Morrison. Great guy. He's going to file for annulment based on fraud. Jennifer, you're going to pay back every penny you spent on this wedding that came from my accounts. You're going to move out of my apartment. And if you contest any of this, I'm going to make sure everyone you know sees these messages. I lowered the microphone. That's it. Everyone else, I'm sorry for wasting your time. The caterer will refund your seats. Please enjoy the appetizers on your way out. I set the microphone down on the stage and walked toward the kitchen. Sarah was standing there, and she'd moved all my stuff to a back office. My jacket, my phone, my keys. I packed up your things from the coat check, she said. Your apartment keys are in the jacket pocket. There's a car service waiting out back. Paid for. Don't argue. I didn't argue. I hugged Sarah Mitchell, a waitress I'd met 4 hours earlier, who'd saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Thank you, I said. Really, I mean it. Take care of yourself, she said. I left through the back entrance. The car service drove me to a hotel in Southwest Portland. I checked in under my own name and spent the night in a room that cost more than my suit, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the fact that my life had just been rebuilt from the ground up in the span of 6 hours. The next morning, I called Brad Morrison, the divorce attorney, the one I never thought I'd need. My best man said you were good, I told him. I need an annulment. What happened? Brad asked. She cheated. Before the wedding, during the wedding. I found out an hour before the ceremony and called it off in front of everyone. There was a long pause. That's actually going to make this easier, Brad said. Fraud and infidelity. We can move fast. She won't have much ground to stand on. The paperwork took 3 weeks. Jennifer tried to fight it for about 5 days before her own attorney, a woman named Linda Martinez, who apparently had no patience for nonsense, told her that she was better off settling than fighting. The annulment went through. No marriage, no divorce, just a legal erasure. I got back 60% of what I'd spent on the wedding. Jennifer had to return the rest. She moved out of my apartment by the end of October. I changed the locks. I got a new number. I didn't speak to her for almost a year. When I finally did, it was through Brad Morrison's office. She wanted to apologize. I told Brad to tell her that I didn't accept it, not because I was holding a grudge, but because I'd realized something in those months after. Her apology wasn't for me. It was for her. It was about making herself feel better about what she'd done. I didn't owe her that. 3 years later, I'm still in Portland. Still at the same software company. I bought a house in Northeast, exactly like I'd planned, except now it's just me. No shared mortgage, no arguments about kitchen renovations, no wondering if the person next to me is also planning to betray me. I saw Jennifer once, about 2 years after the wedding that wasn't. She was at a coffee shop downtown with a man I didn't recognize. She looked happy. I'm sure she was. I hope she was. Marcus didn't last long. Lindsay told me he moved to Seattle 6 months later. I don't know what happened between them, and I don't care. I've learned that some people are just incapable of honesty, and the best thing you can do is remove them from your life and move on. But I think about Sarah Mitchell sometimes. I looked her up about a year later, found her on Facebook, saw that she was still working at the restaurant, that she had 3 kids and a husband named Jim who worked in construction. I sent her a message thanking her again. She responded with a heart emoji and a message. Proud of you for walking away. Not everyone has that strength. That's what I tell people now when they ask about my wedding day. I tell them about Sarah and how one act of kindness from a stranger changed the entire trajectory of my life. I tell them that sometimes the best thing that can happen is discovering the truth before it's too late. And I tell them that if you ever find yourself in that moment, that impossible moment where you know something is catastrophically wrong, but you don't know what to do, sometimes the answer is to listen to the person offering you a way out. Sometimes salvation comes from an unexpected place. Sometimes it comes from a waitress who sees the truth and decides to act. Sometimes it comes from someone brave enough to say, "Hide and let me help you." I'm grateful for that moment every single day.